Good evening. Welcome to the November 4th CIC meeting. Dennis, please call the roll call.
Yes, November 4th, okay. I believe Barkley Hills is on Zoom with Carla or Dee Dee?
They are
Not yet.
not present yet, but I will let you know if they pop up at any time
Okay.
during the meeting.
Down the line, Kanema, Linda to my left, yes. Myself, Caulfield, Dan is on Zoom. Dan?
Yes.
Lisa? Great. Lisa is here. Garish? Lisa, with her audio off. Gaffney Lane, Betty,
I'm here.
and Shelley Alway. Shelley?
Hallway.
Yes.
I'm here. Thank you.
Great. We have Sarah at Hillendale. Here. And Josh. Here. Also. McLaughlin, Denise.
Here?
And Tim's going to join us?
No, he is in Canada.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Park Place, we have Steve.
Here.
And Bob. Here. To my right. And Rivercrest, Emily. No longer the rep.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're inactive at this
Okay.
point. Yeah.
And South End, we have Mark on Zoom. Mark?
Hi there.
Hello, welcome. I think that's where we are.
We do have some people in the audience from Hazel Grove and Westling Farm as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
Welcome.
welcome.
Is Adam gonna be here?
He is excused absence. He had a work conflict, so he will not be able to join us tonight.
Back to you.
Okay. One of our presentations tonight, the Hazel Grove, I would like to move up first. We have some people in the audience who would like to speak after that, and they have something else they would like to do. Would that be okay with everyone? Everyone approve?
Yep.
Yep.
Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay, so we will have the Hazel Grove Westling Farms Neighborhood Association Project, AR case, Engineering Forestry, LLC first.
And I have this for you folks.
Yeah.
So you can.
You can just flip.
And if it's not working, just let me know. Sometimes it can be funky.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having us. We appreciate your time and saw on the agenda that this neighborhood association is going to be assembling again in April or so, but we're glad you could have us now.
Yeah, we're shooting for April, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can just formally introduce yourself with your names
Sure.
and your organization.
So I'm Glenn Sutherland. I'm a land use planner with AKS Engineering and Forestry.
Nathan McCarty, engineer, AKS Engineering and Forestry.
And this is a subdivision at the end of Orchard Grove and White Lane.
Is it working?
Yeah, thank you.
Let me just also, sorry, I want to make sure that I'm able to view and share my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you.
All right, and as I said, we're from AKS Engineering and Forestry. I am Glenn, and this is Nathan.
Sorry.
No problem. We take care of land use planning, civil engineering, survey services, arborist services, and we are working on this project. I'll give you an idea where it is. It's in the Hazel Grove Westling Farm neighborhood. It's in the very southwest corner of Oregon City. And it's about a 4.5 acre site. It's south of White Lane, south of Orchard Grove Drive. And it's in the area of the Wheeler Farm subdivision. And I'll show you a little bit closer where that is on this map here. You can see it's kind of tucked in the corner there. It has R10 zoning, so it's pretty sparse density zoning, similar to everything within the UGB there, adjacent to it. So we're pretty early in this process, so I don't have too much information other than, we're kind of working out the site plan right now. It's a fairly small site and it's got streets gridded out, so there's not too much that we can do with it besides what we're showing here. There's a huge power line easement that kind of goes through that property there. So there's a good chunk that is not buildable, but it's fairly flat. We have about 29 lots that we were planning on at this point, and they look like duplexes. They're technically 2-unit townhomes, but as you can see, they're pretty similar to surrounding lot in terms of building size. So you just have one building and 2 units. It's not rows of townhomes like you see in other projects. These are all separate kind of buildings. So they would look pretty similar to their surrounding neighborhoods there. But as you can see, it's 2 streets, some street frontage improvements, street trees, stormwater facility, and again, that's pretty typical of those types of zones and that kind of community that's around there. So I think with that, like I said, we can do our best to answer any questions you might have. I'll take it back to this last slide here. I'm happy to give you any business cards if you come up with a question later, but I think that's pretty much it. Any technical questions Nathan can handle.
Bob, do you have your sign up? You have a question?
Yeah. Is that in the city limits?
Yes.
And can you describe the kind of parking that would be available?
That we are planning typical single-family parking with driveways on the front of the lots. So shared driveway, correct? For every 2 units there, and every odd unit would have its own. So there's those buildings on, like, for instance, lots 27 through 29 that would have 3 driveways there.
A garage space?
Yes.
Denise?
How many trees are you gonna have to cut down?
Have we done any?
Our arborist is looking at that. I believe that it is a total of 7. I don't have that in front of me, actually.
It's pretty much farm field right now. There is a stand of trees in the middle, but yeah, I know that we are proposing, if this stays current, 45 street trees.
She didn't dump her litter, did she?
But there's not, I don't have any information about the exact number of trees that are there right now.
But you're gonna replace,
Yes, yeah, that's code, and
Yep,
we're gonna
okay.
meet the code,
Okay.
to replace at least 1 for 1.
Betty?
So let's look at 13 and 14 on the slide. So
Sure.
what is your anticipated land that will go around?
You mean the setbacks?
Just how much land are you giving each unit? How much land would each unit have?
Sure, so we're going to meet the setbacks for the R10 zone and the lot coverage requirements. So I think what we're envisioning right now is pretty similar to what you see there. Is it a 16-foot side yard?
Yeah, 16 feet between units, yep.
Yeah, so that's in excess of what the zone requires, which I believe is 5 feet. So it'd be 8 feet to the property line.
16 feet between units or to the property line?
Between buildings.
Between
Yeah.
buildings?
So 8 feet.
So do you think that would become a parking lot too?
It'll have a garage. I don't know, obviously, people turn things into what suits their needs. But I don't imagine that 8 feet is enough space to use that as parking.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, let's
let's hold on a second. This is Shelley Alway. Sorry, I'm in a Zoom, I'm just zooming in.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for some clarity. So each of these units are 2 single individual homes with one common wall, correct?
Yes. So
And
for example, if
is
we're
there
looking
a
at
garage
13 to
for each?
14, that's two
Okay.
separate units.
And is there a garage for each of the 2 homes or just a single garage?
There would be one for each.
Okay, and will there be parking on street? Because, and I'm just gonna be real transparent here, people will do what they want, frightens me. Okay, so it's one of those situations where 8 feet may not seem like good parking, but it's amazing what people can do with 8 feet.
Yes, it's true.
So,
Granted, yeah, there is
and I'm also
on-street
concerned
parking.
about on-street parking. Are they gonna say on-street parking's okay? Or is the city gonna say no to that? And is it developed with sidewalks on both sides? Or, is it a one-sided development of sidewalks? I mean, I'm kind of wanting some clarity about what this is gonna be like.
Sure, yeah, you can see in the drawing there, it's kind of, you have to zoom in maybe, but the gray
Right.
area there are sidewalks proposed on both sides. We would complete, it's labeled as white lane, on this drawing. We worked it out with the city and we understand that will soon be turning into Orchard Grove rather than White Lane.
Okay.
Because it does a weird kind of dogleg thing right now. But
Right.
there will be sidewalks on both sides of the street. The streets will be typical local city streets, an extension of those streets that are already there, Payson Lane and White Lane there. They'll be the same width. There will be on-street parking available. We are combining driveways to make as much on-street parking space as possible. As you can see, there's street trees that are planned. So I think that's gonna calm a lot of the traffic issues that you'd see, but also really force those drivers to use the combined driveways. But yeah, I can't really
Yeah.
tell
And
you
that's-
how it's gonna be
and
used
call me
40 years from
objective,
now.
But that's provided that the homeowners water the trees and they actually exist for more than the first year.
Right, and that would be, that's something that's on the developer
Is
as
it a rent?
as the applicant, you're responsible to maintain those trees for a certain period of time.
Okay.
But yeah, we're kind of getting into how are people going to take care of their property, in the
Exactly. I understand
future,
that's
and
not
I
in
don't
your
really
purview.
know.
I get it. Yeah. Okay, thank you for all
Yeah.
your answers.
Yeah, definitely, thank you.
Steve?
So on Street A, there we go, thanks. Between Orchard Grove and Wheeler Farm, it looks like you're doing full street enhancement. So you got sidewalk on both sides that you're responsible for?
Yeah,
And on White Lane or the Orchard Grove extension, you're only doing the half street?
yeah, it's a quarter street there, I believe, right?
We'll
With
build it to half-street improvements, but there's already over half-street of pavement there.
Okay,
But the opposite side of the street is already developed with Payson Lane, so there's already sidewalk and pavement to center line there already.
but the two tax lots, 7,200 and 7,100 are not developed, or?
The houses are there, they're developed. They have not done any frontage improvements in the side yards there. And that's because there's only 5.4 feet of right-of-way between the lots and the property line of this project. So when we do this project, we will construct all the improvements on both sides of the street in that section.
Okay, and that, is the sidewalk going to be adjacent to the street, or will there be,
Yes,
In that section, yeah, we'll have to swap the landscape strip and the sidewalk in order to
Okay.
get it, to fit
okay,
correctly.
so it's just like it shows out here.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Okay, I got a couple ideas here I want to run past you. One is, this is obviously an attempt at denser housing. Is there any lower income goals here for affordable housing? Is that being worked on or not really?
That's not part of the plan at the moment.
Fair,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know what kind of market that our client is looking for. As far as the units per acre, it's actually not too much above the minimum.
Right.
Cause I think the minimum is actually 3.5 units an acre and we're at 7.
But you're maximizing the space nicely, and
Yeah.
that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
My other question has to do with, I've seen developments like this that have common areas and they're considered condos. Is that the case of this? And homeowner association governs it all, and I've been a part of something like that before. Is that what you're up to here?
no,
No, there's no common areas that the group has to maintain?
no.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks.
The stormwater facility is the only tract on this project, and it will get dedicated to the city. So
Okay,
there won't be anything.
that's
Yeah,
pretty clear.
the
clean.
large yards there are kind of misleading, but, our client feels like a large yard where no one's gonna be building a house might be attractive to some buyers and, since you can't build in those areas, will be an area that's maintained
Green
by that
space,
homeowner.
Green space, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob?
Is Street A and Payson Lane, are those both dead ends?
Yes, those will both be dead ends. That's exactly where the city limits and urban growth boundary are. So we, by code, have to stub those to the line. I imagine there would be some sort of access easement placed on the ends of those so that the city could control who could connect to those in the future. But that would ensure because the Metro UGB is a little further out, as land gets added to the city, that can continue the street grid.
Has that been approved by the fire department?
We have not yet had any approvals as part of this
Because they
project.
usually require some kind of a turnaround space.
Right, and we do have that, kind of lot 25-ish. That's a turnaround that meets their standards for,
So
Fire
it would be an improved paved turnaround area.
yeah,
Yes.
and that actually wouldn't be, is that an easement? That
Yeah.
would be there?
Yeah, so that emergency fire turnaround on lot 25 there would be an improved pavement. And that's to meet the fire standards there for turnaround on Payson Lane. And then on Waite Lane, on Street A, which turns Street A there, the fire department only requires a turnaround if there's more than 150 feet from the nearest street. And we have just at 150 feet there on Wheeler Farm Road to the end of the dead end.
Yeah, I figured that'd work for that, but the Payson Lane would be the crucial one.
Yep.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's what we're showing.
Thank you.
Josh?
You've got a couple different places here, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, that look like they have double shared walls.
Yeah, those are 3-unit buildings.
And then 26 stands by itself.
Yes, yeah, just because that's such a large lot, but it's not dimensionally enough for another building like the others. So it'd be just a standalone, single-family
Okay.
home.
And then is there existing buildings on
There
the
are,
property now? Will those
um,
be demolished or?
Yes, they're typical farmhouse type buildings. They're actually really close to White Lane. There's some garages and other outbuildings and things. But yeah, those would be kind of in the lot 13 through 16 area. And those would be demolished as part of the site work and all these new buildings constructed.
Okay, thank you.
Any
I have
other?
I have a question.
Yes?
Are we far enough along to see an elevation of any of these structures?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, do you know what the
Yeah.
schedule is on those?
No, we'll be submitting for land use later this month, but I can speak in general to it, or if you have questions. The lots will be approximately match street grade within, and the idea would be for the lots to basically match about 6 inches below the top of curb on the streets and follow that trend. And the streets out here, as the site's relatively level, the streets will match that as well. We're constrained by the elevations on the intersection of Orchard Grove and White Lane, and then the intersection of Payson and White Lane. And so really the only change in grade there is down Street A and Payson Lane toward the end of streets there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Online? Thank you.
Great, yeah. And I have a stack of business cards. If anybody has any follow-up questions, just let me know and I'll get you one.
Okay,
You
Thank
can
you.
leave some with me and I'm happy to distribute them out. Yeah.
Thank you.
okay. And there's, we have a public comment from Pat Euler. Ullman? Okay.
Yeah,
Please come.
absolutely.
We'll give you 3 minutes, and if you would state your name and,
I wish they would stay here because this layout is different from what's on the pre-app. I have a copy of the pre-app showing 31 units.
I think you have to sit down so you can.
Yeah,
Just sit
just
down,
make
yeah.
sure you sit down and state your name. Yeah.
Stay up here if you'd like me to.
As they just sit down in the front.
Yeah, we'll be
It's
fine.
good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll give you 3 minutes, Pat, thank you.
My name is Pat Ullman, U-L-L-M-A-N. I live on Payson Lane and have been there almost 23 years, as long as the little HOA is there. I'm very surprised to see this layout because the one that I have that was in the pre-app shows 31 units. And so my remarks were based on that, so I'm juggling here. The units that are closer here, the 3-unit and the larger house, can I ask a question of him? Has that land, I don't think that land's part of the original purchase even.
It'll be part of
According
your,
to what it shows on here.
part of your 3 minutes, yeah.
That's not, all right, so I'm gonna just hustle through here. There is a very large ancient oak tree that will need to come down for this, right by units 21, between 20 and 21 approximately. Let me just say that the way that it is written on here, all of the homeowners are in opposition. We actually have our HOA annual meeting is going on as we speak. And so I left there to come over here, but there's quite a flurry of people in our HOA and the other HOA that's there. This does not give an indication of what it is really like. We're into farmland where there's been cattle on tract A down here. And the others have had sheep and goats and a pony and it's been a very fun area. We've been concerned about density, concerned about the amount of traffic, again, different number of units. But my understanding is from talking with planning department that the traffic would figure 3, now I have to look at this, at least 30, where's my, 31 units, 10 trips per day per unit. And so that turns White Lane, where children play outside a lot on the street, that's gonna turn that into quite a thoroughfare. And that is a big concern for density and traffic. We realize that the governor wants as much housing as she can get. We acknowledge that, and that this is a free area. However, it is bounded on either side by HOAs. And so, the care of the homes, all of the homes in the area have been, it's a very nice upkeep. Where I live, our little homes are just at the average home price for Portland area. The other ones on the upper side, it's not the north, it would be the actually northeast side. Those are $800,000 homes. I'm not sure what we're gonna have here for this. But the density is a concern. We understand that housing needs to come in. And I think that's as far as I can go right now.
Yeah, that's
And
it, that's, your time's there.
just
Thank
to
you.
know how soon we can get this layout.
Yeah.
But we do intend to oppose it if there's not a better layout and if we can't work together and know a little more.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
May I ask a question? What is the name of her HOA?
Our HOA is Payson Farms HOA, and I just
Thank
learned, I know there's another one, and I'm not sure of the name of that one. A larger HOA that goes down Orchard Grove.
But, thank you very much.
Thank you, and we have 40 homes.
Thank you. And if I can, I'll answer those to the best of my ability.
Yeah, okay.
Just kind of jotted stuff down here. Yeah, at the pre-app, we had 31 units. That's come down a smidge to 29, and those kind of larger yards are shown there because of that. And that's kind of the way that it worked out. That's the maximum number that seemed reasonable in this piece of property here, especially with that easement, that large area to the kind of south of the property being off limits. As far as the land part of the purchase, if you look at this, there's two properties that we're actually dealing with here. One, we have an application in right now. All of this area is in the city limits in UGB except for that portion on the very right-hand side that says that it's a remainder. That's outside of the city limits in the UGB, so that's why there's nothing shown there. The part that's the south end of Payson Lane, that's actually part of the lot of record that's tax lot 200, the same property that's a part of. Unfortunately, when the UGB was placed, it kind of split both of these properties, these lots of record. So there's a bunch of different tax lots, and some of them are in the UGB and some of them are not. So we're trying to consolidate those ones that are in the UGB, and that would be everything that's kind of south of Payson Lane there. So that's currently in the city limits. It's currently in the UGB, but it's part of a larger 40-ish acre property that extends out into the county. So this would bring that into the property that's on White Lane there, so that could be developed. Let's see here. The large oak tree, yeah, I don't have the existing conditions right now. They're being surveyed kind of as we speak. And the arborist is going to look at all of those trees. I know we're kind of sensitive in this industry towards Oregon white oak trees. So anything that's an oak tree is going to be replaced per city code. And we would try to get that replaced with something like, so another oak tree in that particular case.
Dee Dee has a question from online. Is there or has there been attempts to build around at least the old oak tree? I thought native trees had to be mediated by size of tree. Just interested, thank you.
Sure, and that's definitely been the case in other developments. I don't know exactly where that tree is right now, so I don't know how it fits into this plan. But I think that because there's minimal grading, we're gonna try and save whatever we can. But it's hard to say right now whether or not that's in an area that might be, you know, in the smack dab middle of lot 24 or something like that, for example. If there's a way to save it, I think we usually try to do that. If there's not, then we have to replace that per the code.
It's in Payson Lane.
Oh, it's in Payson
street.
Lane, okay.
It's in
So
the
yeah,
It's in the
that's,
street improvements.
Oh, okay.
that's a little hard,
That's a
when it's in
hard.
the street.
Okay. So Bob, you have a question?
I wish there was somebody here from planning. Is there gonna need to be a traffic impact study made?
I think there's a.
Yeah, we have a planner currently, or excuse me, we have a transportation engineering firm currently working on that, yes, and that will be a part of the land use application submittal in November.
So the lady in the back there that made the comments from the homeowners association should be made aware of the availability of that traffic impact study sometime in the future.
If she's
And
within
then
the
if
notice area, she'll get a notice from the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be part of our application.
And have you had a pre-planning conference yet?
Yes, yeah, that's what Pat was speaking about with the 31 units. At the time, we had a slightly different site plan, and it showed more units than what we're showing now. So we do have feedback from the city. We're trying to address every comment that we've been given, and obviously there's the whole land use process ahead of us.
So again, the lady in the back there that had the homeowners concerns, that pre-planning conference minutes would be available to you for your people to look at. That's all.
Betty?
So I just had a quick question. This is, the UGB has surrounded this area, correct?
Yes.
So it's Clackamas County. So is there plans to develop in the UGB area with Clackamas County?
Outside
Outside
of
of
the
the
UGB?
city?
No, not
Okay.
as part of this.
Okay.
That's that area to the south that is part of tax lot 200, and also I've typed it out like 1,000 times as part of the property line adjustment application. So it's tax lot 200, tax lot 1700, and 1790, and that's burned into my brain for the next couple months. That's all part of a whole lot of record. That's in the county.
That's in the county.
It already has a farm dwelling on it, so that's
So no development that
that's
you
not
know
part
of?
of this at all, and I don't imagine that it could have anything else on it.
And it's zone farm.
Yeah,
That's all zone farm use as well out there in the county.
yeah, this is all R10.
I just wanted to make sure this wasn't just part of, a smaller part of a larger development, because this is city and you could go to the county and,
Yeah, the UGB would have to expand before that could happen.
We have a question online about what's the average price of homes, or estimated approximately? You said you didn't know at this time?
No, and
Okay.
unfortunately, that's kind of like
I know.
the question that I get constantly, and I honestly could not tell you where those would be. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. The other question we have online is curve the street, bump it out of the sidewalks, make it an unusual feature, and will slow down the traffic considerably. I don't know if that's a question or statement. Okay, so.
Dee Dee, do you want to elaborate at all? I'm not sure if
Asking
her
both of
audio
your
is.
questions next, Carla and Dee Dee. Okay.
That's what, yeah, that
That's
was
what you
me.
said. Okay, that's what you said. All right, okay.
Yeah.
Reading what's here. Okay, do we have those answers? It was about the oak tree, which is in the middle of the street. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. How many square feet of the house is going to be?
Oh, they don't know that.
It's a good question.
Yeah, they don't.
Really?
I don't remember looking at when I looked at those.
How would you not know that?
I got the architectural drawings from a previous project in Oregon City with the same applicant. And I want to say that there's 1,600 square feet, but that seems small.
Who was the other applicant? Did they build homes in Oregon City? Townhouses? Could
Yeah.
you share where those are at?
Yeah, the applicant here has actually developed in Oregon City for decades.
Okay.
And built homes here, both in this area and adjacent to it, this development, as well as off on Leland Road and other parts of the city. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know when your next step is? Do you have a next meeting scheduled anywhere with anybody planning or city commission or anything yet? Solid meeting?
No,
No,
not
okay.
scheduled. We would have to submit our application and go through that whole land use process before we got to that.
All right.
The way that we were planning to approach this application was as a typical subdivision, so it would be a staff decision. So that would be on their timeline.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I have one.
I have one, Mark.
Who is the developer?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say it was Ryan Park.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved with the previous applications, but they are experienced in this area. And maybe they
I
can
didn't
speak
catch
to
the
that.
name.
Ryan Park.
Oh,
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, are these going to look like duplexes?
There are 2 and 3 unit townhomes and a single family on lot 26 there.
So each house is going to have a garage door in the front then?
Yes.
Any other questions?
This is Shelley. I just want one question. I don't know the process and the order of events, but has this number of dwellings been already approved?
Nothing has been approved. We haven't applied
Okay.
for land use yet.
Got it. Thank
But
you.
this is in the range of density, so.
This is like a pre-planning sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Thank you.
Sarah?
One last thing. Okay, so you know it has a garage. Do you know if it's a 2-car garage? That'll help us understand how big these are.
I don't, actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just- I know it seems kind of ridiculous, but at this point, we
It's
don't
early.
know those things,
It's
yeah.
early, I get it.
I can tell you that as part of like the civil engineering and the land use process part of that, we typically don't get involved with the design of the homes whatsoever, so it's hard to tell you other
But you're
than,
planning the space, so you have to know
Right,
how
right.
much, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that,
we
that
would-
seems like you would know that part.
I can tell you that we will meet the requirements of code. So that definitely means that there will be parking in a garage on site. It's probably for those, I'm gonna guess it's a single wide garage, but it may be
Okay.
tandem parking.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the floor plans because they haven't been created yet, but
right,
I would be happy to follow up with you when we get those.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for coming, Pat. Okay, so let's go back to the communication with people experiencing unique circumstances, behavior, health specialists. Hello.
Dayna, do I have a clicker?
Yes, you may. It should be working for you. Let me just get this.
Well, and thank you for having, I'm not used to do this presentation sitting down. And I'm also not used to do this 2-hour presentation in 20 minutes. This is to the best of my ability.
Speed presentation.
Yeah, but my name is Valentina Muggia. I'm the behavioral health specialist and the CIT coordinator with Oregon City Police. And I'm here at the request of Anna, and I'm assuming is because we have seen an increase in Oregon City of people that are experiencing definitely unique circumstances. So I'm gonna pass all this for you guys and just kind of focus on unique circumstances. I think generally speaking, we think of mental illness as a unique circumstance. We think of drug addiction as a unique circumstance. But there is much more that encompass this. Not everybody who is presenting in a aggressive or less than friendly way as necessarily just those two. We know that a lot of medical problems cause difficulty in communicating. We have a population that is aging. And with that, we have more medical situation that we were not aware of before. We find a lot of people who never had any mental health, until later in life based on something like a UTI or just recently having surgery and responding to anesthesia. Brain tumor, all causing difficulty communicating. Trauma, we know, whether it's recent or past, affects greatly the way people communicate, especially the way people respond to communication. And so often we have involuntary responses that these people are having. I can tell you that in the past year or so, we have seen a significant increase in our people with special circumstances. Just to mention what's going on with the Father's Heart, they normally serve about 80 people. They've been serving about 184 people a day. And believe it or not all people that use the Father's Heart services are necessarily homeless. Some people, because of their mental health or not, feel associated with that community. So that kind of shows you the increase of number of people that we had, the influx in Oregon City. I think with the migration that is coming from Portland, and they're getting, for lack of a better word, asked forcefully to leave Portland, they're all coming here. Oregon City is unique because we have the jail, which means that anybody that get arrested in Clackamas County get dropped here at the jail and often are released 9 o'clock at night when there are no services that they can help them and they end up be stranded here. We have had new facility, one specifically in downtown Main Street, that is a dual diagnosed mental health and substance use that is bringing people on from all over the state. And again, they also get released here. We have parole and probation here. We have the courthouse here, so we end up receiving a lot of people that are experiencing stressful situation, which is another reason that can be a unique circumstance. And then there is life in general that can present a lot of unique circumstances, whether it's financial stresses, whether it's relationship stressor, whether it's, stress related to school. All these things, if they go untreated or not addressed, will cause people to drop their communication style. So briefly here, and please ask any question. This is a very interactive. I like to say that these circumstances are never a justification of somebody's behavior, but rather an explanation. And for the people that are involved in a conversation or attempt to have a conversation with these people should be more a kind of a red flags in the back of your mind that maybe communication cannot happen at this time, and perhaps we need to ask the professional to get involved. A good rule is that if the response seems excessive for the situation or seems to last longer than what a normal upset should be, chances are that the person is having some unique circumstances that are affecting their ability to communicate in a safe manner. And just make sure that you are recognizing verbal and nonverbal cues. Okay, I think sometimes what people are not saying and how they're behaving says a lot more on what people are saying. So the first thing when you're encountering people that have unique circumstances or they're upset, I mean, they never have unique circumstances, they're not happy, they're usually pretty upset, is to determine whether or not you're going to be able to communicate with this person, okay? Start asking very simple, straightforward question, kind of yes or no. Always ask for whether they have, English is not their first language, whether they have some sort of, verbal communication disability to keep in consideration. Most people that do have special circumstances like that, they are not gonna get offended by you asking, they actually welcome that. Safety should always be, you'll hear me say this maybe 100 times in 20 minutes, I don't know, but safety should always be your number one concern. And this is safety for everybody involved, not only the person that you're attempting to communicate, but also the people around you and yourself. If you determine that you can have a conversation with these people, try to reduce the stimuli around them, maybe put them, if it's safe, again, in a kind of private situation, so there's not everybody's looking at that. We know that when people are trying to express themselves in a conversation and they feel that everybody's watching, we see it all the time. We police, every time the police is having some sort of encounter with people on the street, you see thousands of people that come out with their cell phone and they're recording and then they put it on YouTube. And that, first of all, is very disrespectful for the person that is having a situation. But secondly, it tends to actually escalate the situation. So while people are saying, I'm trying to document, they're actually causing the opposite effect of what they're trying to do. So be respectful and polite. I think that everybody wants to be addressed in that manner. So we want to show and we want to basically refer to them or talk to them the same way that we will want people to talk to us. Some people have very difficulty expressing themselves, so the answer might take longer for them. We live in a society where we're all like immediate gratification, so when somebody asks you something, you want an answer right now. Well, some people it takes them longer to compute what you're even asking. So patience and making sure that when you engage in a conversation with somebody, you actually planning to spend some time. This is very important. Make sure that you let them tell you what the story is, because most people want to be heard. That's the number one. And make sure that you are understanding what they're asking, okay? Again, because of instant gratification and because we all have very little time, we want to like guess what they're saying and trying to answer for them. That doesn't increase the minimization of the difficult situation. Again, all the distraction that you can eliminate, it will help the person answer. And then really don't assume. Ask clarifying question. Sometimes all I ask people is like, what can I do for you? After they've ranted for 20 minutes, and I'm like, so how can I help you? What can I do for you? And I think that really makes a difference because they get to listen, feel listen. So if you determine that communication is not possible, okay, which it should be pretty quick. There are two main concepts to remember, right? Reasoning with an angry person is not possible, okay? The main object of de-escalating or talking to calming somebody's down should be to, again, calm the person down to the point that you can have a conversation. And to know that any sort of verbal de-escalation tactics, and we're only talking verbal de-escalation tactics here, is that it goes against your normal instinct. When someone tends to yell and scream at you, your reaction is to match that tone, okay? And so if you match that tone, they're gonna go higher, and then it's just gonna be a pointless battle who can scream louder. So against all your instinct, you kind of wanna take a deep breath, and bring down, calm down. If you guys are standing up and there is the possibility to sit down, sit down. But what we know is that when you bring your tone of voice down, when you really are genuine and you're non-threatening, the person is gonna mimic what you're gonna do, and they're gonna come down, and then you're gonna be able to have a conversation. Okay. Of course, staying calm and not taking personal, even if you feel that the attack is personal, is a must, right? The escalation techniques, just remember your verbal and nonverbal cue, right? Your tone of voice makes a huge difference. You know, if you're agitated, if you're patronizing, if you're sarcastic, okay? I think that really escalates people. Believe it or not, even people in crisis can sense whether you're being genuine or not. Your voice become the sound of your voice very kind of monotone and repetitive really is helpful. Listening, repeating the thing over and over. You know, if you ask a question and they go on a tangent and is not answer the question, gently bring them back. Thank you for sharing that, but this is what I want to know. That makes a difference. And be clear in what you're asking for. And if you ask like rapid graphic question, like do this, do this, do this, there again are not going to be able to compute what's going on. Your body language is super important. If you're talking to somebody and you're like being like this and you're very defensive, they are not going to feel like they want to open up with you. Well, generally when I'm standing up, I show you my body stance, right? If you're planted with both your feet in front of this person, that actually is not safe for you. You should always stand in front of a person at diagonal, because if they launch on you, you're gonna be able to move a lot faster. Your facial expression, I think most of us don't realize how expressive we are in our face. And so I always said, if you get the opportunity to study yourself in the mirror, do that, okay? When I worked for child welfare many years ago, what I learned to do was that anytime a kid would tell me the story, I would sit down holding my chin like this, because many times they would say something and I would just like, and people see the reaction, and two things are happening. If you're talking to maybe a younger person and they see your reaction, they're gonna stop saying what they're saying, right? If you're talking to somebody that's experienced trauma and that's why they're angry, they're gonna stop because they don't wanna upset you, okay? And then personal space. We have to give people space. For your own safety, you wanna keep the distance anyway, but I think when we have, so if the person is sitting down and you are like talking from a standing point to them, that's not gonna make them feel safe. They're not gonna wanna open up. And maintain eye contact with them. At the end of the day, these are human beings who are experiencing very difficult situations. Any questions so far? No, so far.
Yes.
Yes.
How much assistance do you have?
From what?
Assuming you have help with,
So I'm the.
how many people you work with?
Right, so I am the only behavioral health specialist for Oregon City, you know?
And how do they find
So
how
I
do they
work
contact
with
you?
the police department.
You work with the police?
I work with the police, yes. And I have been very lucky. Oregon City has been fantastic. And this May, they actually add the case manager for me. I'm on call 24/7, 365 days a year. So they brought in somebody else, and that's been very helpful. I respond to police most of the time with police, unless it's somebody that I'm familiar with, and then I can go on my own. I can get dispatched.
Well, with the season approaching us, Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Holidays are hard.
what is your anticipation on need? I mean, I would imagine this is
So that's such a difficult question to answer. Believe it or not, actually, right around the holidays, people tend to behave because they want to be with their families. These people that experience difficult situation, most of them have family and friends. So Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving is pretty okay, but then between Thanksgiving and right before Christmas, everything implodes. And then after Christmas, everything implodes as well. So how many people do I see?
and what's your caseload?
Well, I don't carry, it would be impossible for me to carry a caseload. I can tell you that with our CIT, which is our crisis intervention team, which is multidisciplinary, we are following about 75 people. And those are the high utilizer of our services. So we have somebody, for example, that since January 1st has been to the emergency room 200 times. Okay, so when we say high utilizer, we say high utilizer. And so, but on average, I wanna say, every police report that encounters somebody that has a mental health component, okay, I respond, I follow up with them, okay? So that's average about 50 to 60 police report a month. On that.
You're busy.
Very busy. I wouldn't want it any other way, so that's good. And just make sure that I'm finishing here.
And Dee Dee just asked over message, can we get her card reference? And I said that I would be happy to share your information with the CIC
Perfect,
members.
like if you can send the email, all my information, I'm on the bottom, and you can definitely reach out anytime and ask questions, especially if you have a situation. I respond not only with police and to police, I also respond to community requests as well.
There you go.
I'm gonna tell you that if you call me 3 days later, it's gonna be very difficult for me to engage with that person. But so if you can call me as close as possible of when the situation is happening, my response time has been as quick as 16 seconds, because I was just driving by when they were reaching out. And there have been instances where I have private practice downtown Main Street, where I had police say on a day that I wasn't working at the office, say, I have somebody in the car, can I drop it off by your office? And I say, absolutely, I'll come down. So availability is not an issue.
Sarah?
So,
Oh,
Sarah has a question?
Try it again.
yeah.
I think she wants to keep going. Okay, is it okay? First, I want to thank you for all you do for this community. I hear nothing but glowing reports from anybody in the police force and public too. Just fabulous, and thank you. The other thing, I suspect the reason you're here is that our neighborhood had an experience last month when we tried to have a candidate forum. And it got de-escalated very much by using some of the things that you're talking about. But I wanted to just ask if you had any tips for, at the moment it starts, people are terrified. The two men that were disruptive and loudly and obscenely disruptive were disruptive in favor of guns, which led to a whole lot of nervous reaction. And after the one very large man went off, people were trying to get to the door, but in the room we were in, there was one in and out door, and he made a move toward it. People were pretty panicked, and we did de-escalate it very much using the techniques you're talking about. Our chair was amazing, and he identified with them. He's a vet, so, and he keeps guns too, so he had a real good, common ground to talk to him. He's very chill and very, did all the things that you're telling us about. But in the moment, is there anything that you could help us with?
So, well, I mean, so first of all, thank you for saying that. This is my community as well. I live in Oregon City. I raise my children in Oregon City, so this is dear to my heart. The reality is that when we're working with human beings, we are working with unpredictable behavior, right? We don't know when and what is gonna set somebody out. I think the number one thing is, if it's at all possible, is to try to get the person out of the small space and kind of do a one-on-one, and you can say things like, I really want to make sure that I address your concern and your issue. Can we step out for a second so that I can understand what you're saying, and then maybe we can bring them in. I think that, like I said, when people know that they have an audience, they tend to up. So removing them from their, whether it's willing or unwilling audience is gonna make a huge difference, right? I think that calmly saying, hey, I wanna give you the respect that you deserve, but I've said this many times, your tone and what you're doing is really scaring me. And so I am not able to really understand what you're saying. Can we calm down a little bit? I know that people say, well, that's a sign of weakness. That's a sign of connection, you know? Nobody
Yes.
likes to be yelled at. And so I think that that is important, and always have sort of a team approach. I think that is as well important. Some people might not connect with somebody, but they can connect with somebody else, so recognizing that is. But staying calm, be open, and trying to take the person outside of, that would be my first
That's
reaction.
helpful, thank you.
And then recognize that sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to call in. Do you guys have a panic button here?
We do in here, but a lot of the neighborhood associations
They
where
don't,
they meet,
yeah.
they don't.
So, the reality is that you call 911 or you, but you have maybe a kind of an understanding with another person, they can step up and go to the bathroom and call 911 and call the police and call people in. I tell you what, when you're talking about people, children, people, money, or people, guns, you're gonna get, people get upset.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll fight for that. So the number one is trying to avoid a power struggle, because it's not gonna be good for anybody. And then use a team approach and use positive self-talk, you know, hey, this would really help me, or I really wanna help you. Can you help me understand without getting angry, because if you're angry and you're talking to me to that tone, and I said this sometimes, I get so frazzled that I really am not hearing you. So if we can calm down, that's gonna give me a better opportunity to listen to you. And you can set limits and give choices. I think it's okay for you to say, hey, your behavior is not acceptable in this room. You know, we're gonna ask you to leave, while you have the right to express your opinion and what you're looking for. If you want it in this setting, we're gonna ask you to follow certain rules. Again, people are just unpredictable. So if at any point you feel that you're not safe or that nobody else is safe, I encourage you to call any of us.
Appreciate it,
I think
thank
that
you.
this is my time, so I don't wanna, does anybody else have any question for it?
Any other questions?
Yeah, and if any of your association, your neighborhood association would like the longer version of this training, I am happy, you know, to show up to every single one and provide the training. That's part of my role in the community, so.
Are there any questions from the people online?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Val. Have a good rest of your night.
Public Works update. Dayna Webb.
Hey. Good for you. Thank you. Okay.
All right, good evening. I'm Dayna Webb, the Public Works Director, and I've got a Public Works update for you tonight. All right, so tonight I'm going to give a brief overview of our sanitary sewer inflow and infiltration program, our water program that we refer to as WIFIA, I'm gonna have to look at my notes, Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act program, an update on a handful of transportation projects, our preparation for winter weather, an update on drinking water, and then a little bit of information on the Clackamas Cove water quality work we're working on. So I'll start with our sanitary sewer I&I reduction program. So we often use the shortened name I&I for the inflow and infiltration. So really that's looking at our sanitary sewer system and stormwater that's getting into it. So we treat that sanitary sewer flows, and we don't want to treat stormwater flows getting into the pipes. So broken pipes, cracks in pipes. And so we really are working to reduce that. So as part of that, we've adopted information in our master plan. And then we also have an IGA with Clackamas West, or Water Environment Services. And in that IGA, we are reimbursed 33% of our expenses by the county. And really what they've done is agreed to that, knowing that the cities themselves own the collection system, and the county or West owns that treatment system. And if we can remove that I&I from the city's collection system, then it's less material for them to treat. And so that investment in the collection system ultimately will save them money in an expansion of the treatment plant. As part of that, we've been sharing and talking about a lateral program. So the City Commission approved the expenditure of public funds to repair and replace private sanitary sewer laterals that have cracks or have deteriorated and are letting in that stormwater. So as our program is coming through into the basins, and we're rehabbing those main lines that the city owns, we're also rehabbing the lateral that's typically from between the curb or the edge of pavement and that main line that's considered the public portion of the lateral. But also, if the individual homeowner is giving permission for the city to take a look at their lateral, and we see that it's a pipe that we can replace with, a minimal amount of effort, then we are including that in the program. So as a homeowner, if you own a property in the basin we're working in, you would get a letter reaching out to you requesting ability for a right of entry. So for the ability to our project team to come onto your property to be able to take a look at that lateral. Often we do that with a little camera that we send through the sewer pipe, but occasionally we'll want to kind of come on the property and be able to do it maybe from a clean out near your home if there's a blockage in the pipe. So it's really a program that if you're part of it, you'll get a letter, you'll get information on it, and you can reach out to the project manager. And so we're working through kind of those first few. So my next slide has our basins. So each of these colored basins are where we're focused with this I&I work. And again, these basins are our sewage collection basins. So some of them, like the Rivercrest one, kind of lines up with the Rivercrest neighborhood. So these are not a one-for-one for the neighborhood association boundaries. These are how we kind of view our sewer collection system. And so we have an annual manhole rehab project where we go in and seal those manholes. Many of those manholes are older and start leaking. And so in a high storm event, you can pop the lid in and water is coming in the side. So we can see storm water coming into those sewer manholes. So we have an annual program to do those. I think we did about 130 manholes last year, and so we're looking at continuing that each year. The Malala Avenue project is under construction, so if any of you have been traveling on Malala during the kind of workday, you are seeing that. That project is going to continue through the end of this year. We're working very closely with our water program, which is also programmed to come down Malala starting in the spring. So really trying to get this sewer work wrapped up and have a small break before the water work comes through. In our Lynn Basin, we've completed Project 1, and we have Projects 2 and 3 are in design. And then for Rivercrest, we've completed Projects 1 through 3, which really focused on our main lines in there. And then Project 4 is under construction now, and that's coming back through, for the most part, that entire purple Rivercrest Basin and doing the private laterals. So those first 3 Rivercrest projects were approved prior to our lateral program being approved by City Commission. So now we're kind of going back and finishing up that basin. And that will be our first completed basin. We do an annual report to City Commission where we do what's called flow monitoring. So we can take each year and we can calculate the flows in each of those sewer lines. And so we have these key locations and we can start to see the benefit of the projects. So that's a quick overview of the sewer projects. So our drinking water, that Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. So you may recall on the ballot, a couple of years ago, we had an ask to take on debt. So a city charter doesn't allow us to take on debt without a vote. And the vote to take on debt was approved. So we have worked through the paperwork to get that $16 million loan. And so that has a 50% match. So we have matched that with about $16 million of city funds and are working through those projects. And really, the program allows us to take on that debt and really get these projects that we need for our system moving forward quicker. When I go to my project page, so that pipe you see there, that's an actual pipe taken out of a neighborhood in Oregon City. We have many pipes that are very old. And at a point, those pipes start to get so much kind of stuff inside of them that you struggle to get, water through them. And so that's when we start to struggle with having appropriate pressures and getting the water into all the neighborhoods. So in this WIFIA program, we've got the Molalla transmission main. So although that says construction October 2024, we've had a few delays and we want to make sure that we get this sewer project work done, give everybody a small break before we come back. So I think we're thinking spring on that one. We just wrapped up the work on the Claremont area. So a handful of roads over in the Claremont neighborhood just finished up. They got their water pipes done, and then we came through and did the paving with our pavement maintenance fee program. Holmes Lane is another roadway that's been a little bit busy. So we've finished the sewer work, and now we're coming through and placing a new water line with the WIFIA program. And then I think there's a small delay, and then Holmes Lane is scheduled for paving, I believe, in 2026. And again, when we can, we really love to combine these. So the previous Molalla Avenue project from Beaver Creek to 213 had a funding schematic that allowed us to combine water work, street work, paving, sidewalks, all into one project. So it was a minimal impact to the neighborhood. Unfortunately, with the sewer program being a reimbursement from WES and the water funding being federalized funding, they're two very different buckets of money that are best kept separate. And so, I acknowledge that means a little more impact to the neighborhood, but it also then means we don't have to pay federalized on our sewer projects either. So if we had to federalize the sewer project, we'd see an increased cost. So we try very hard to make sure things are, combined and working well, but there are just times when we aren't able to combine them for federalized reporting and cost reasons. So that Holmes Lane water line it should be wrapping up. The intent is to have that wrap up before we kick off this next Molalla project. So we've tried very hard to keep them, not overlapping in cases when we can. So that should be wrapped up by the end of the year as well. And then our other large transmission main project includes a new pump station. So currently we have a pressure zone down in the southeast area of town, what we refer to as Fairway Downs. And so that has a pump station, and that neighborhood is served water by just what we call a positive pressure pump station. So that neighborhood is not served by a reservoir. So typically what we do is we pump water up the hill into a reservoir, it's in the reservoir, and then it drains down and serves the customers. And in that scenario, if we have a power outage and it takes a minute for a generator to kick on, or if a generator has an issue, there's still water available. In that area where Fairway Downs pump station is, those residents, in the event of a power outage, if the generator doesn't kick on right away, that would be, struggle to maintain water service. And so it's an option, but it's not a preferred option. And so in this scenario, that pump station is at its maximum capacity. And so this would build a new, larger pump station. It would still continue at this time to be a positive pressure pump station, but it would allow a larger service area with a long-term goal that we would build a new reservoir up at a higher elevation that would serve that area. And at that time, the pump station would be converted to pump to that reservoir and then gravity feedback. So it's an interim situation, but it isn't a temporary. It's not a throwaway pump station. And so this project would design that pump station and also the transmission mains. All right, next I'll talk a little bit about transportation planning. So last month, Christina and I were here to talk about the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan. So that went to Planning Commission at their last meeting. And so now we'll be moving forward to City Commission. Other transportation planning work that's being done. We've got a consultant looking at the Beaver Creek Road and Maple Lane signalized intersection to see if there's some operational efficiencies that we can find with that traffic signal and how it functions with the increased traffic from the new development. We think there's some small things we can do to the signal that would help it work a little bit better. So we are looking at that, and we'll work to implement the outcome of that review. And then I wanted to share, I'm not sure how much we've talked about this. Our transportation system plan was last updated in 2013. So it's a little over 10 years. Ideally, we're looking at those kind of a technical document every 10 years. We had been working with DLCD on the funding for that. And unfortunately, at this point, that funding is no longer available. So I'm working closely with our planning department to identify funding opportunities for a transportation system plan update. Can be a fairly expensive process, especially if you're kind of opening the whole thing up and relooking at your goals and objectives. If you're just doing kind of a light touch and maybe looking at your project list, it can be a little bit quicker and a little bit more cost feasible. So it's not off the table, we're just trying to find funding for that transportation system plan update.
Is it not going? No.
Oh, I went too far now, sorry. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about our current transportation construction projects. We've got two projects currently going on, one in construction. So if you've been up on Holcomb, you've seen there's just a little bit of excitement between the city's project and this year's farm project. It's been a little bit of a rough ride up there through this. Unfortunately, the city's project has had a few issues. We've got Lumen is a utility provider up there, and they have not been working well with us. We're currently a little bit impacted by their delay in moving their power poles. So the city and the contractor are working on options to kind of work around that. So continuing to push Lumen to finish design for relocating their overhead wires to the new poles that PGE's put in. But we're struggling to get them to commit to a design and commit to a construction move date. Otherwise, I think the project is generally moving forward as expected. That has delayed us a decent amount. And I think we're looking at, I think a spring wrap up is what I heard this morning. And again, at this point, we're working with our city attorney on options for that contract.
two of us here on the committee live on Oak Tree Terrace. So we're experiencing the difficulties that you're experiencing, I guess, up there. It's kind of like a war zone.
Yes, we had a rough, we had an early storm event, and the storm pipe was blocked and we had a washout across the road. So that was a little bit of a late evening. The flaggers were out, one-way traffic. I think they've worked through that item, but we actually ended up relocating the storm line. We were waiting for Lumen to relocate off the poles because the storm line was supposed to go where the poles were at. And so we've kind of redesigned it to work around the Lumen situation.
I get the feeling that the flaggers there are almost a part of my family anymore.
Yes. I know they're working hard to get the project done. The other project that we've got going on is our downtown quiet zone, and that project is in its design phase. So that project would provide safety improvements at 10th Street and Singer Hill Railroad Crossing, as well as at the 11th Street pedestrian crossing. So those safety improvements are still being refined, but what they're looking at is what's referred to as a 4-quadrant gate. And so today we have a 2-quadrant gate. When the train signals to the intersection that it's coming, the bells and lights start, and then the gates drop. And in a 4-quadrant gate situation, those same first 2 gates drop down. Typically, they don't quite touch or overlap. And then there's a slight delay, and then the second set of gates comes down. So then those tips of those gates are within 1 foot of each other. And so a car can still drive through it, but it's much harder, and it's just another visual that doesn't let them kind of go around the gates. And so that is a safety measure. That median that's down there would be converted from the median that's there today to a concrete non-mountable median. And so we'll work through kind of those design-specific items with a group of folks from Union Pacific Railroad who operates on those tracks. The Federal Rail Administration comes out and does a review of the site. ODOT has a rail division, and so they would attend as well. And then the city would attend as well. So with our design consultants. So we get everyone out there, we look at the safety as it is today, and we look at how can we make it safer, knowing that we're taking that train horn away. In a quiet zone, the engineer of the train can always sound that horn if they feel there's a life safety issue. So in the event, they're coming down that corridor and they can see someone or an animal or something, they're gonna sound that horn, even in a quiet zone. But it removes the routine sounding of the horn, which when the city commission had this as a goal, the intention was to create more of what's referred to as a 24-hour downtown. So it isn't just people coming down working during the day, but there's an ability for people to live down there and kind of activate the area at more hours of the day. And so the quiet zone was a goal of the city commission.
Why didn't they extend that goal to the residents that currently live along the train? The train runs all through Oregon City, and you can hear that train a-coming, and you can hear the horns when wherever they're at, through all the city, all the way up and down. It seems like they would have contacted that for more than just 2 streets.
I can't answer why their goal was just for the downtown. That was kind of the direction. I know there's been folks up off Clackamas River Drive near Forsyth as well, because there's a crossing up there, and then there's the crossing down kind of in the Kanema neighborhood.
Okay, just curious.
Get Bob's flaggers over there so you don't have to have the train horn.
So then I'll talk a little bit, this is my upcoming transportation construction projects. So we've got 3 projects kind of in the queue that we're working on. Some of you might be familiar with the Highway 213 and Beaver Creek Road intersection. So years ago, we adopted alternative mobility targets, where we worked with Metro and the state to look at options on how to address the congestion at that intersection. And ultimately, what we identified was a project that addresses the AM peak problem. So if you're traveling on Beaver Creek westbound, kind of coming, from the college or from Maple Lane, so you're traveling westbound and you want to take that right-hand turn to go onto 213 northbound, there's a yield movement. And so as you make that turn, you're required to yield to traffic on 213. And so for those of you that use that movement in the morning, it backs up sometimes all the way back to the college entrance. And so what this project would do would take that yield movement and convert it to a free flow and add an acceleration lane on 213 northbound. So we would add a 3rd lane for a distance on 213. And so then those vehicles would no longer need to yield. They would be able to free flow and then really clear out that intersection where it connects with Maple Lane and really all the way back to kind of that Claremont signal where it backs up in the morning.
What are you gonna do with the pedestrians?
So that was one of the things that was flagged. I think there'll be some discussion about, does it become a pedestrian activated RRFB that would, alert the traffic that a pedestrian is there. We at the time, we didn't kind of get into details. We did flag the need to address pedestrian crossings. So that project would be locally funded, and we do have money set aside in the current budget to start that work. Right now, my constraint is a staff member to lead it.
Betty?
So it's going to be locally funded, coming out of our city money, but they're both ODOT and county roads,
Yes,
and they're not chipping in no money.
at this time, no.
Thank you.
I've got a question.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, on the Beaver Creek and 213, there's a lot of people traffic. There's young kids, 5 and 6 years old, crossing the road. There's kids on bicycles just jutting across at 45-degree angles where there's no sidewalks or nothing. It's the pedestrian traffic there is horrible, and somebody is going to get killed. Some young kids are going to bite to death there unless you look at the pedestrian traffic really closely. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think when we get to the design of the project, we'll look into some of that kind of things. Right now, I'm recruiting for a project engineer to lead these projects. So if you know a transportation engineer.
And this right here was just for that Beaver Creek onto 213 northbound, right?
Yes, yeah. So the next project in the queue is Main Street from 10th to 15th. Sorry, Main Street from 10th to 15th. So that is a state lottery bond funded project that we were awarded funds for. So we've got about $4 million to do what we generally refer to as streetscape improvements. So addressing sidewalk issues, street trees, street lights. We've made a pretty good upgrades to the ADA ramps in the corridor and adding bump outs to shorten that pedestrian crossing distance where we can. So that project will work very closely with TriMet, who is currently in the design phase for the reconstruction of the transit center there on Main Street at 11th and Moss. So working very closely with them, they are ahead of us, and they will be under construction possibly before we even finish design. And so their team and our team, once we start our project, will work together on that. So that was a grant funded project. So that one will move forward after the 213 and Beaver Creek gets started. And then actually on Wednesday night, I'm making a presentation to City Commission on a concept design for the Washington Street corridor between Abernathy and 17th and the Home Depot / Metro entrance. So we, apologies, not we, the original developer of the Rossman landfill site applied for community funding through the federal government. And after they put their project on pause, that application was still active, and we were asked if we wanted to be the recipients of the $4 million federal earmark to address transportation access in the area, and I said, yes, please. So I spent a couple months working with ODOT and Clackamas County trying to coordinate that money as part of some of you might be familiar with the Jug Handle project. There's a phase 2 still kind of waiting that addresses the needs at Redland Road. That $4 million just wasn't quite enough with the county's condition of approval for the courthouse to really address the entire project. And that $4 million of federal funds would have federalized the county's project. And so we were not able to get to an agreement on kind of working together to get that full Jug Handle phase 2. And so as we saw that wasn't going to work out, we stepped back and we've been looking at how we could use that $4 million to better transportation access in the corridor. So the proposal that I'll take to City Commission on Wednesday is addressing the gaps in the sidewalk in that corridor, looking at putting an RRFB at that crosswalk between the end of the Oregon Trail and the Amtrak station. We've seen the increase in events at the end of the Oregon Trail. People are utilizing the Amtrak station's parking lot and being able to really get people safely across the corridor and along the corridor. And so I'll be asking for their feedback on that concept. And once we get that buy-off on the concept, then we'll move that one forward in the process for getting that into the State Transportation Improvement Program, the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, which is essentially a fancy way of saying any federal money that comes into the state and to the metro boundary has to be amended into all of their plans. And so I probably have 9 months of paperwork processing with them. And then because it is federal funds and Oregon City is not certified to deliver federally funded projects, I would ask ODOT to deliver it on our behalf.
And Carla Laws asks, is the application for Rossman landfill still active?
I probably need to defer to planning if the land use approval is still active or not. So that's, I think, something you could reach out to either Aquila or Pete. My understanding is they've placed the project on hold.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Carla? I think so.
All right. Oops. No. So additionally, the city essentially goes after every transportation grant opportunity we can. So right now I have 5 applications in various stages. So there's a program called All Roads Transportation Safety. That's based on crash data, and it's based on essentially crashes and injuries and fatalities. So when you look at the most dangerous roads, then you can apply for funding. So my first application in that was citywide, addressing, I've got kind of a short list of safety improvements at traffic signals. So that would put in the last of those yellow reflective backplates. It would address some signal timing issues, and it would address some pedestrian crossing items. So that one, along with the intersection-specific one at Malala and Pearl. Some of you might recall we had a handful of incidents at that intersection. We were able to kind of take care of some low-hanging fruit with some minor updates, but this would really take a more comprehensive review at the pedestrian and bicycle safety through that intersection. Both of those grants are on what they call a 125% list. So they take the amount of funding they have and they put projects that cost up to 125% on that list. And so just last week, I submitted my next round of documentation for the projects, and then we wait and hope they both make the list. What I will say is we are one of the only cities that made the cut. Most of the other projects are on county roadways or much larger facilities. So again, we take it pretty serious and we apply for each and every one of these grants. That regional flexible funds allocation step 1 bond, that is for that McLaughlin Boulevard project. They've gone through the first round of eligibility and we passed that eligibility checkpoint. And then they've given the projects a preliminary ranking of a 1 to 5. And there was only one project that got a 5, and then there were 5 projects that got a 4. And so we are in that grouping of ranking as a 4. They're refining the criteria, and part of that is they're still working to identify the bonding mechanism. So once we get through that, then we'll know a little bit more, but that one is moving along. Our step 2 application is also for that McLaughlin Boulevard project. It would just pull it back a little bit and it would just do project development. So it would continue to refine the design, but would not get us to construction. And then the Oregon Community Paths grant is looking at, some of you might recall, maybe 5 years ago, we did a McLaughlin to Kenema Trail. And so that is the project that we're looking at for the Oregon Community Paths grant. We submitted our letter of interest and we were approved for application. So the team is currently working on that application. We'll be reaching out to the Kenema neighborhood and our Parks Advisory Committee as well to look at letters of support for that grant application. So more to come on that. I know we spent a decent amount of time a few years ago we had the, what did we call that walking?
Greenway.
Yes, the Greenway for a day. We did that. So it's really taking that project to that next step. All right, let's see if I can, I think we both hit it, there we go. So the city recently, so transitioning to other non-construction projects, the city recently purchased a new patch truck. So this truck allows us to do small paving projects. I believe they used it when they were doing some paving work out on Beaver Creek, west of 213, just a few weeks, month or so ago. So this really assists us with our summer paving program. Essentially, this truck has the asphalt in it, it has the compaction equipment, it's got the tack. It's essentially a kind of a all-in-one piece of equipment instead of bringing out the dump truck and the paving machine and the compactor and the tack truck. We can kind of just run out with the one truck. This is also the truck that they use for most of our pothole repairs. So it's a small crew, and the truck and the crew really can do the whole thing quickly. It actually has a heated compartment for the asphalt, so they can do pothole repairs in cold weather. Normally your asphalt cools down too quickly and it just kind of hardens up before you get it compacted. In this case, it's a heated box. So this has been helpful. You know, if we get water main breaks, sinkholes, the crew can get the truck loaded up and head right out. Also, we're already preparing for winter weather. So we're getting the gear all kind of dialed in. Our crews continuously monitor weather forecasts and are regularly coordinating with kind of all the regional folks. In the event we have winter weather anticipated, somebody is elected to get up at 3 a.m. and check the weather and drive the roads and decide, do we call in the de-icing trucks? Do we need sanding trucks? Are we delaying opening of City Hall? it's usually, there's coordination with, the school districts and things. So our de-icer is a magnesium chloride, and so that helps to lower the freezing point of the road. So it stays wet. And then there are times when they'll put out the sanding rock. And so the crew will make those calls based on the weather and what they're seeing out there. In those events, our crews run 24 hours a day. So sometimes they'll run 12-hour shifts. Somebody comes in for the day shift, somebody comes in for the night shift. There are a handful of streets that we close, and so they would put out those closures as well. And then we've got our sandbag station is open, and so we've shared that on social media. That's at our old Public Works site on Center Street for now. And then we've got, so this is a little bit of our crews in action. This actually has a video. I don't know how to make it play. Oh.
I don't know.
Okay. So some of you might, that one on the right, that was a social media post. I think that's our highest ever views on social media was that
I can
post.
confirm, because Jared brags about it all the time.
So our crew was out working to clear the road. They took a quick video, and I think there's a challenge out to get another video with more social media hits, but it's been very popular.
I feel like it was only just a couple months ago that we stopped getting interaction with that, and that was all the way back from last winter, yeah.
Yeah, so we have 2 pickup trucks with 200-gallon tanks for de-icing, 2 10-yard dump trucks with plows and sanders, 1 8-yard dump truck with a plow, a 2-yard dump truck with a plow and a sander, a 2-yard dump truck with another plow. We have 1 grapple truck that we use for clearing tree debris, so when we have those ice storms, we can get out and clear the trees. We have a wood chipper, chainsaws, backhoes, front end loader. We take out whatever we need to get the roads as cleared up as possible. And again, we've got kind of that order of which roads are priority 1, 2, and 3. And so there is a map on our webpage that you can see that. All right, be real quick here with these last couple. So just an update on our annual water quality report. I believe this gets mailed out to every resident, and it's also available on the webpage. And it just kind of walks through our water quality. Again, we purchased finished water from South Fork Water Board, so we are just a distributor of water. We don't own the treatment. And then just a quick update. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, put out a lead and copper rule. So this came out in 2021. And essentially we had to inventory all of our service lines within the city, including the private lines between the water meter and the buildings. And so we've completed that inventory in October of 2024. And what we found is that we do not have any water services with lead in them. So there are some agencies that have lead pipes in their system. And our GIS team is working on a publicly accessible tool for some of that mapping. So once we get that done, we'll do some social media posting about that. And then one quick item. So most of, everybody that's kind of southeast part of the town receives their drinking water from our Henry C. Reservoir. And about a year ago, we took the reservoir offline. We did some seismic upgrades to the roof, and we added, in these photos, you can see this black pipe that runs inside of it. So this is inside the reservoir. It's a 2 million gallon tank. So it's very large, and that black pipe is a new mixing pipe. And so that the water comes into the tank and kind of gets pushed out of all of those little kind of pokey parts there. And so that helps to mix the water a little bit better, so that we don't have water quality issues where we're seeing water that isn't turning over in the tank. And so we took it back down a year later to do a warranty inspection and just make sure that that new coating inside looked good. We had a few issues with the exterior coating, so we want to make sure the interior looks good. As part of that, they'll pressure wash the whole thing and clean it out real good. We don't drain it very often. In fact, the inspections that are done when the tank is full, and it's a diver that dives into the tank and does the inspection. And that's pretty typical for water tanks.
We're not drinking water. I don't know about that.
They're sprayed down, so they're clean.
Good. I assumed.
Yeah, all right. And then I believe this is my last one. So this is just a quick update on the Clackamas Cove water quality and alternatives evaluation. So the cove has been of interest in the kind of the water quality in it. And so essentially we've hired Aquatic Insights to help us do testing and monitoring of the water quality in the cove. And so each of those dots kind of identifies a sampling location for the cove. And so far the results are that there haven't been any issues. So what they're looking for is harmful algae. So I think at times, some of these water bodies that don't have a lot of circulation see harmful algae blooms, and we did not observe that this year. The team is going to continue to assess it. What they have been seeing is what they refer to as levels of pond stratification. And so at each of these testing sites, they're testing at different depths in the water. And so they are seeing kind of the water is creating kind of layers where it's warmer in one spot and cooler in another spot. And that all kind of leads to being able to determine if we're likely to have these algae blooms or not. And so at this point, the team is continuing to do those observations. There's a report back. I believe the report back is to Urban Renewal. This property is owned by Urban Renewal and the contract is held by Urban Renewal. I believe it's scheduled for spring-ish, late spring-ish. And then the results will be presented to the Urban Renewal Commission, and the alternatives analysis will make a recommendation on next steps. But again, like anything, one year of data it's not probably enough to make a determination on, right? Different weather events, different kinds of things. But essentially, the cove gets cut off from the rest of the river, which is kind of what creates that lack of circulation. So this team will make a recommendation based on their findings. And then the Urban Renewal Commission will make a determination if they continue monitoring or other options available. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Oh, Sarah.
Okay, well, we'll even balance that thing. You covered a lot. Thank you for everything you do, but thank you most especially. I was part of the Claremont water replacement project, and I bet you know about my house on Autumn Lane that caused so many problems with my sewer lateral. So that took a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for everything that was done. Eric Hand was an all-star. Everybody that I worked with was kind, compassionate, helpful. It made me proud to be an Oregon City person once again. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, occasionally, I think in that scenario, somebody thought your lateral wasn't a functioning lateral.
That's apparently what happened. And for the rest of you, they had already paved over. They had done the sewer, they had done the water, and they paved it over when I started having problems. I'm a household of one, so it took me longer. And they had to dig up this nice, beautifully paved road that we were all so thrilled with. And they had to dig it up several times.
Yes,
They were so-
unfortunately, when the contractor repaired it, he didn't call us out for the inspection,
Oh,
and then it didn't pass.
but I didn't get all the details, but I knew how long it took and how many people, and I know it was expensive as all get out, so thank you. You restored me.
Any other questions? Online? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Are there any other public comments online or? Okay. Did you all get time to read the minutes that we had?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All approved?
Aye.
Those, any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Staff, November staff report?
Yes. I also just want to let you know too that Mark exited and Dee Dee exited as well, but Carla is still with us online.
Okay.
And I'm gonna run through this quickly because I know that we've had a longer night. Within the staff report, you can review everything. I just want to highlight a couple of things. Trail news went out. Linda already talked to me about a point of maybe something that she would like to change in trail news. Review it. Everyone should have received one. You can also access it online. If there's anything that you want to change, just let me know. The next deadline for the spring edition of Trail News content is going to be due in January. So the deadline for staff is January 13th, but if there's something that you specifically want to put in, get it to me a week beforehand. That way just I can review everything and make sure it's something that can be added. Like for instance, South End Neighborhood Association, Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association put in their notices about reactivating the neighborhood association. Elyville Neighborhood Association did a little thing about their ice cream social that they had coming up. So if there's anything specifically coming up within your neighborhood that you want to address, now is the time to start thinking about that because content will be due for the spring in January. And I know those deadlines are kind of long stretched in between, but that's just the planning process for some of these things. And then E-Trail News went out with all of the neighborhood association meetings for the month of November and December. I sent you an email about the Houseless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County community meeting that's happening. There's information on that. If you will be changing any of your meeting schedules for the 2025 calendar year, the sooner that you get that to me, the better. Because again, I make sure to always advertise these things within Trail News, on the web page, and then through E-Trail News too. So I usually have a calendar that I keep. If you're adjusting or based off the holidays, you're going to be switching one of your regularly scheduled meetings, just give me a heads up. And I know that a lot of you are probably figuring that out within your own neighborhood association meetings as the new year approaches us. Social media postings we covered last time. The postcards. As you know, our postcards have routinely been going out on some teal paper. When we switched over from Buell's impressions over to Eagle Web Press, before Buell's kind of used whatever stock paper that they had on hand, and that was something that I emphasized with Eagle Web Press, but they had been specifically ordering us this teal stock, and it was brought to my attention that the neighborhood associations want to have more colorful postcards, which I know that way it stands out. So I worked it out with Eagle Web Press. I have the ability to change the background color of your designs. So no longer are we ordering colored stock paper, it's gonna be on white paper, and then the printer will print out your postcards on whatever background color you choose, and that does not affect cost.
Cool.
Yep. The cards that we got at our house
Yeah.
had a water drop on it, and it blurred something
Everything?
on the, there was a link for something.
Probably
that
for
wasn't-
Tim's email.
Maybe, no, it was something else, I forget what it was, but since it's printed, it's gonna
Yeah.
have that problem, it's gonna, if it gets wet,
Gonna
it's gonna
bleed.
bleed, yeah.
Okay.
So that might be a problem,
Okay.
Only when it rains.
only when it rains.
Only when it
Wait.
rains.
Shouldn't do that
In
here.
Oregon.
Oh, we'll be fine.
Safe.
So if we want to go back to stock paper, all of the neighborhood associations would have to agree on one color. That's the only way that we would be able to keep costs down. Because they don't function the same way as Buell's does. They use very specific numbers and they're planning in advance. I've been trying to coordinate with them too on pairing a lot of Elyville and McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. Their postcards went out together to make sure that we keep that reduced cost. So if the neighborhood associations, if the CIC is concerned about the water damage, then that's something that,
I think,
Point.
well, my personal opinion is that will be a problem.
Yeah.
I have a metal mailbox, and it just gets a little moist in there different times. And any one color, I think, would be fine. I don't know if anyone's got a thing with a personal color, but the green's nice or whatever. I really think that, my opinion is that we should be better going off with the bright paper rather than the print, since it's
so that was another thing, is that the fluorescent paper is much more expensive than the other. So what I can do is I can reach out to Eagle Web Press and request some paper samples and bring that to the next meeting.
just the samples.
But in the meantime, the postcards would be going out. If you don't want the bleeding issue, then it would be out on white paper.
Our next meeting's in December. That gives some of us an opportunity to see what they're gonna look like. We'll have a little more information if they bleed, and then from,
The color was
Color.
great, it was
Yeah.
like orange.
Yeah,
for-
but that's
for October,
that's
so.
a good point, yeah. Okay, I will make sure to contact and get some samples.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Did it affect the readability of?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's just one line, there was like one dot of, because our mailbox is on the door, so, yeah.
no, that's a very good point. And if that's something, what I'm requesting out of the neighborhood associations is when you send me your postcard design, until we figure out what we want to do moving forward, emphasize what color you want to use. So if your neighborhood association is concerned about the the postcard getting wet and that affecting the readability, then I would stick to the white. And I know that doesn't stick out as much, but that's for you to decide internally with your neighborhood association. And then next meeting, I'll make sure to bring some paper stock samples.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And besides that, it's mostly, everything else is the same in regards to public records, fishing, and Zoom meetings. The only other thing that I want to emphasize is that I sent another email out forwarding on an invitation from Love One Community who presented last meeting, that there will be a showing at Clackamas Community College of No Place to Grow Old on Friday, November 18th at 7 p.m. And all of you should have received that information via email. Moving on to the financials. Last budget, since the last budget, some of the neighborhood association addresses have changed. Most of it is minuscule. Caulfield, hold on, I got it here. Caulfield dropped by 1 address, Elyville gained 10, McLaughlin gained 2, Two Rivers gained 11, and Hazel Grove Westling Farm gained 3. So that just, it did not affect any of the budgets, but it did affect it affects the budgets, but our financial director didn't have it affect the budgets. He only had it affect the overall budget remaining. So before, there was more unallocated surplus funds. Now, technically, the CIC is in a deficit if all of the neighborhood associations spend all of their individual funds. The other thing that affected the CIC budget this month is that the refund that Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association initiated over to Dave Hunt for the purchase of their A-frame signs, that was included within the budget, putting it into the fiscal year of last year, since that's when the actual purchase occurred. But that also affected the unallocated funds for the CIC. So I just wanted to point that out. With that, I also just wanted to highlight, like, we talked a lot about, why did you go away? It's because I didn't include it. I wanted to talk about what the city commission would see if in regards to the CIC budget. We talked a lot over the past couple months about equity versus equality, and also the budget that the CIC sees and the neighborhood associations see individually within their own budget, but then what the overall CIC budget is. So right now, for the fiscal year of 2024-2025, the CIC has their $30,000 budget. They've spent just over 8,000 of that, so there's $21,396.81. That's the difference. And the total remaining budget from the 2023-2025 is just under 27. So just keeping that in mind as overall. With that said, I think now would be a good time to move on to general business and talk about Hazel Grove and Westling Farm reactivating. Unless if there's any other questions about the budget.
Yeah, would you want to come forward and talk about?
No.
Okay, well, we have 2 representatives here from the Hazel Grove Westling Farm neighborhood. Met with them a week or so ago. It's very nice. Hannah and I were able to give them lots of information. We're encouraging them to come. I think we were planning on having a first meeting in April to avoid the holiday season, and we'll be looking forward to having them join us. So did we scare you off?
Do you want to formally, just for the recording and anyone online, formally introduce yourself?
My name is Jose Humanas. Anyway, my name is Chris Nolte. I live on Vincent Drive. The guy behind me is George Matos, and he lives across the street on the other side of the street. Anyway, we are thinking about trying to get the neighborhood association reactivated. There's a group of maybe about 10, 11 of us that had a backyard get together in George and his wife's backyard, and I said that I would help to get it started. I don't have any, next year I'm going to be running for governor, so thank you very much for your support. But the idea is that we just want to be able to get this off the ground, so we're putting our backs into it in that sense. As is said, we were thinking about having our first meeting in April, which gives us a chance to be able to take some short breaths along the way and not have to be able to double down during the time of the holidays and the dark, wet periods that we know so well in Oregon. So, and then it gives us the spring to look forward to doing some other kinds of fun events. In between, as was said, yes, George and I met with Linda and also Hannah the other day a delightful time to be able to get oriented on what we need to be able to do. We need to send a letter out, or one of those postcards that you just saw, and we need to be able to create a more inclusive or more active email list as we try to be able to do that. Also, the other things that you are so well versed at with the websites and the other activities that you have done. So the first thing that Hannah was saying was I needed to be able to come, George needed to come so that we could be able to requisition some funds for our first mailing. So here we are, and if there's any other advice that you would give in the reactivation of a neighborhood association and all of that, two things. Number one, you can say something quickly, or you can be able to get my email, and I give you permission to give it out to y'all, and we can be able to talk, or my phone number. Or, you know, I'm a type A blood. You can have some of that. I have 6 children that you can rent. It's just, you know, it's really, really simple, but nevertheless.
I'm gonna go back. What was your name, sir?
Chris Nolte, Nolte.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a meeting site yet established?
Hannah and I, she doesn't know this, is going to be going over to the, she actually does. We were going to go and look at the site that is at the police station just down the road on Central Point.
Yeah, where Hillendale,
Water,
yeah,
you know,
and Tower
so,
Vista and Gaffney Lane meet at the community.
Yeah, and we're just gonna go over there and take a look at it. Now, that's, we are making decisions that, for the first time, you always have to just make a decision. This is the place, this is the day, this is the time. Whatever the neighborhood association comes up with later on, cool. But this is where we're gonna start. So we don't have a date, but we do have a month. We do have an idea of where we're going to meet, and we're probably looking at an evening meeting. So that's about as skeletal as I can be, or enfleshed around the skeletal that I can tell you right now.
Do we need to move to appropriate the funds or something?
So the CIC has their funds. Really what this is for is making sure, because I fill out all the invoices of all the postcards that get sent out or any of the aim frames that come through, and it's making sure that those withdrawals are allocated to certain budgets. So what I don't want to happen is for Hazel Grove and Westling Farm to send me a postcard design, there be that charge, and then I make the decision on where that's being withdrawn from, especially since I've been able to have conversations with Chris. They plan on having that meeting in April. I also reached out to Mark from South End specifically because my thought process was South End Neighborhood Association is the only neighborhood association that hasn't withdrawn any of their funds. And I've had conversations with Mark. They initially had planned to have their first meeting in fall, but there's been some setbacks in planning and participation. And he messaged in the group chat, Hannah, I'm gonna need to drop out soon. You mentioned that other neighborhood associations may need to use some funds, and I understand that completely. I haven't had the time I hoped to have to commit to South End. I will hope to, but 2 mailers this year may be a greater goal than 4. So especially thinking this budget cycle ends in June of 2025. If you're planning to send out a postcard in April of 2025, then a new biennium begins in July.
Do we have any idea how much it would be for Hazel Grove to have a mailing and
yes,
South End Road to have 2 mailings? We have just a general idea.
So the population, let's go back. I think
It looks like it'd be about $600 for Hazel Grove to mail out.
And South End has a larger population than Hazel Grove. So it's cheaper to send out a postcard to Hazel Grove than it would be to South End. So if you're removing funds from the South End budget for Hazel Grove, it wouldn't be the same, it's not like an equal cost.
No.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about $539 odd cents to be able to send out one for the 1,064 addresses that you were talking about.
So sending out a postcard to be able to, what would be it would have to be a postcard. If you're gonna do a letter, that would be different.
I misspoke before.
Okay.
I think, we need to be able to just start, basically, and I think that the postcard would be adequate because I would like to be able to do that, the trail news, the website and all that, and get that all information to you at the same time.
For organizing the meeting or doing a postcard before of saying, hey, Hazel Grove Neighborhood Association is activating, is anybody interested in joining in that effort?
Well, I was just thinking the one to announce the meeting, but nevertheless, the idea is that if we wanted to go for a second, that would be fine. We can talk about that some other time.
I got you. So the request is to have one postcard sent out in April.
Would they be able to put an article in the Trail News?
Absolutely, yeah, that's something that,
January,
yeah.
That's what Hannah was suggesting. And I think that there was one that was last time in the winter one that was very small, but it had something on the page for the neighborhood associations about reactivation, and I would just reword it, put in our name and go with that.
Yeah.
Try to be able to get something on the specific website for the neighborhood association, include that message on the postcard, and try to be able to also get whatever information is good to Hannah to send out to emails that we already have to notify us if they are active or inactive, and how we can add to that list. I think that's a pretty good start, and it keeps it reasonably inexpensive of $600. We might be able to even just make our own signs for the first time and then get the A-frame if we see that we're established. I don't want to spend another $400 or $500 on stuff that is just going to sit in somebody's garage.
Do you expect to have quarterly meetings?
I'm very sorry.
Do you expect to have quarterly meetings? Do you know yet? I'm asking, quarterly meetings, once a quarter?
I'm really looking at April.
Okay, the only reason I bring it up.
I'm not trying to be defeatist.
No, I get it. You have to keep at it, I'm sorry, but you have to keep at it. You don't get it just one and done.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that I really just want to plan for April, put it in the hands of.
Here's what I'm getting at. We're on a quarterly schedule. We have a meeting in April. We have the next one in July, which would come out of this fiscal year's budget.
Right.
And if you're planning quarterly meetings, there's 2 postcards you need to plan for. That's all I'm bringing it up for.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Because
The note,
I look to you guys for advice, let's put it that way.
yeah, and I would make the note that you do need to present at your first April meeting to the people that attend your meeting, and get a query of what the frequency of their meetings will be. So you need to vote on that, and people need to decide at your first meeting.
Thank you.
And we talked about too of utilizing the online resources like Gaffney Lane did, like South End began doing and is continuing to do. Utilize Trail News, e-Trail News, the website, the email subscribers you already have, our social media, to draw people in to help you into that planning aspect for creating that established neighborhood association. I know Gaffney Lane was extremely successful in theirs. South End has been having some trouble. You get initial interest and then coordinating that and keeping that stamina going, I know can be difficult, especially when you're trying to figure out specific roles and create plans and really reestablish that neighborhood association. So I would recommend reaching out to some of these individuals. Gaffney Lane, who's been very successful, South End Neighborhood Association, who has run into some trouble, and then all of your other lovely, friendly faces here.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion is there a dollar amount that we want to put aside for if we've got two meetings to come up from Hazel Grove, and we,
It sounds like we can just share South End's budget from what Mark said.
okay,
How I'm reading what he's mentioning, where they had a goal of doing 4 meetings. They're looking to probably only end up getting to 2 of them for this fiscal year we're in. So I would just, I would go ahead and make the motion to use option 1 to approve the Hazel Grove Neighborhood Association to use South End's allocated funds.
is there a second? You have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes to use the funds from the South End Road for Hazel Grove.
You have
Hazel Grove.
funds, Chris.
You've got it, you got money. Pretty
There it is.
pretty easy.
Well, I'll let you know when I'm back from the Bahamas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Won't get you
And-
that far.
I just want to emphasize too, because there was discussion in the creation of the budget that if the CIC gets to the end where they're in need of more funds, especially with the fact that we have 1 successful reactivation of a neighborhood, 2 in the works, that will be taken into consideration if more funds.
Promised.
I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence of showing that the CIC is utilizing those
Nope,
funds.
you're doing great on it. Perfect.
Got it.
So, just want to make sure.
Adam will cover us. It's okay.
Bob?
I would recommend that we get on that subject early. The earlier the better, because sometimes it takes a little while to get something through the city commission. It might take more than 1 meeting to get additional funding. So the sooner you can give us a warning that, we're gonna get to the end of our funds, the better off we'll be.
And I know that there have been conversations with upper management, and I don't know if you remember from other conversations that we had too, depending on how much funding is going to be needed until the end of this fiscal year, it might not be a city commission question. It might be a city management question.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
well,
what
if
I
it
was
is,
remembering.
Yes, yeah, and I've had recent conversations. It's at the top of my mind. As soon as Chris and George came to me, the first question I was like, okay, how are we going to make sure that there's funding with this? I'm having conversations with our financial director, making sure that city management is included in those conversations. That way there's clarity and no confusion.
well, if it's a city commission decision after January 1st, I can tell you now, you'll have my support.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
That was clever, Bob. That was clever.
Very clever, very clever. Very, very clever. Yes,
How often do you all meet?
once a month.
So CIC,
Not here, how often do your neighborhood associations?
Oh,
We're all different. Every neighborhood has their own bylaws and their own way that they do it. So
we got a quarterly over here, how about the rest of
Kanema, we meet 5 times a year.
Park Place 3 times.
McLaughlin works like 6.
Gaffney Lane is 6.
6. Caulfield, guess they're gone.
Well, Dan's here. How many times a year do you meet, Dan?
it's on the list.
4?
I think it's 5.
1, 2, it is 5.
No, 5.
These
It is
are the community meetings, though. I'll speak for us. We have monthly steering committee meetings in between the quarterly general membership meetings to plan things.
And they're all published in the little Trail News. We've got a page, so if you're interested, you have it, you can read and see what each and every neighborhood does for the reasons. Some of them have meetings, it's not necessarily a business meeting. We have, Kanema has 5 meetings a year, but one of them is an ice cream social, but it's still a meeting, so.
And also, if you have your old bylaws, it's probably
Yes,
designated in the bylaws.
Yeah, I believe it says 5.
okay, there you be.
Yeah, but we can change that.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I had to. Read if
You have to have a meeting first to change it.
I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit because I didn't see Carla had made the comment of that there was white, backing in some of the areas. If I don't have a ping file of whatever images that you're using, it has to be a white background in the back. I can't change that. And then for postage requirements, there also has to be, since it's ink and not the paper, there has to be the white background behind the address and the postage stamp area. So yeah, I'll make sure to communicate that with her as well.
Moving on to the CIC Bylaws update. How did that go?
Good. They approved the first reading. So the first reading of the chapter for the CIC within the city code was approved. It's going for second reading on Wednesday, so I will be there on Wednesday night. And then there's also a resolution that's up for approval because I found out within the CIC bylaws that any changes that occur within the CIC bylaws also have to go before the city commission. So that will be happening in conjunction. I was hoping that I could place the resolution for the CIC bylaws within the consent agenda, but it got pulled to general business.
Who pulled it?
I don't know, because it goes through an approval process and I don't know like how that got moved around. It might have just also been for convenience of, okay, if this is going to be discussed, it might as well just be discussed one backed by the other. But I will be at the city commission meeting on Wednesday. There will be an executive session that's held before the city commission meeting. So if you're not immediately available to go in, that's the reason why. But if the first reading was passed,
The second one.
It's passed.
but I don't want to promise anything because I don't know. But I will be there and I will be present to be able to answer any questions. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Round
I don't know either.
So I think Elyville has left and South End Road has left. And we have locked out our new resident. Thank
No,
you.
it's not. Dan?
Dan's here.
Dan's on, okay. Dan? No, he's Caulfield. Dan, do you want to go with your round table? Start us off with Caulfield?
Okay, well, I'm kind of keeping it short because it's kind of long.
Yeah, I know, please.
We got a lot of work to do on that intersection at 213 and Beaver Creek Road. With the pedestrians and the traffic, and I'd like to get a lot more input. It looks like the city is really on top of some of the stuff other than the pedestrian part of that issue. So that's what we'll be working on in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Hillendale, would you like to go next?
You heard about our last general meeting, and that's over with, and tomorrow we have our next steering committee meeting, and I don't think we have much else to say, do we, Josh?
Nope, I think
Okay,
that's pretty
short
much
and
it.
sweet, there we go.
No updates since last time.
McLaughlin?
We're gonna have a meeting this Thursday, and I'm hoping Dennis can come be our hall monitor. Christina and somebody else are gonna come talk to us about.
Dayna Webb.
Dayna, okay, about, things that are gonna be pertinent to our, historic neighborhood, so.
Park Place? Park Place?
Park Place?
Park Place.
Okay, we had a meeting in October and the candidates for the city commission all came and it was a lively discussion, no fisticuffs, so we were happy.
Hey!
And we had a presentation for Clackamas County Housing, update on Clackamas Heights redevelopment. Let's see, on Thursday, we're having a special meeting to discuss Park Place Park and our enhancement grant. And we're having issues that the area that the work was to be done in is all infested with poison oak, so nothing can be done. Then on November, what is that, 18th? We have a steering committee meeting. So, that's what I got.
Gaffney Lane, Betty?
Gaffney Lane, I was just looking at my calendar, we'll be meeting on November 19th. We will be having, I believe Pete Walters, is going to be our presenter, and he's going to be discussing things that are pertinent to Gaffney Lane. And we were trying to get the Homeless Coalition to come to Gaffney Lane, but they have an event that same night. So we're gonna ask them to come in, I think it was January or February. Shelley, do you remember?
It hasn't been determined yet.
Okay. What else do you want to add?
We did have a meeting with Oregon City School District regarding the traffic issues at drop-off and pickup on Gaffney Lane with the elementary school, and are trying to work with the school district to figure out that traffic issue at those 2 times of the day. So we're working on that with a small group of people. So trying to make that better for the community and the people that live in Gaffney Lane, because it gets pretty backed up at those 2 times of the day for people that are not related to the school. So.
Kenema? Dennis?
We had a Halloween get-together within our neighborhood, capitalizing on the children's park. And even with the inclement weather, it worked out pretty well. A lot of the young kids and parents dressed up and walked down the various roads and picked up candy. And so, to a degree, I think it was successful again. When's our next meeting?
We have one, is it the 21st? The 21st of November? Yeah. And we are going to invite the 2 winning candidates, the 2 winning commissioners to our meeting. So if that meeting is kind of up in air, we'll know more by the end of the week. Who would invite?
Maybe.
Yeah, if Clackamas County can count.
Yeah. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add?
Carla left a message in the chat before she had to skedaddle. She said that their next general meeting is on November 12th. And they're having Kira from Greater Oregon City Watershed Council present improvements, cleanup, and signage at Singer Creek Park. And the last thing that I'm going to emphasize on behalf of the city is that on November 23rd, which is a Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., there's going to be a Plant for Pollinators community volunteer event where there's going to be planting of some native pollinator species over by the pool. If anyone's been by the pool recently, you've probably seen the new retaining wall that was put up. And then within that area, there's going to be some planting that happens. So if you want to join, I'll send an email out later this week with more information, and you can always email me to sign up. There's going to be a capacity of like 25 volunteers because you don't want too many people showing up and not being able to participate, and it's open to all ages. So.
Okay. So anything else? Then we will adjourn until December 2nd.